If you had told me 5 years ago that I would one day sit across from the man who broke my heart, holding all the power he once used against me, I would have laughed. Or maybe I would have cried. Because 5 years ago I was a different person, a woman in love, standing in a white dress, waiting for a future that never came. I can still remember the way the church smelled that morning, a mix of lilies and old wood, sunlight streaming through stained glass, painting rainbows on the floor. My hands were shaking, but I thought it was just nerves. I thought I was about to start the happiest chapter of my life. I never imagined that chapter would end before it even began. The guests were all seated, whispering and smiling, waiting for the music to start. My mother squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with tears of joy. My best friend Mia adjusted my veil and whispered, "You look beautiful. He's going to lose his mind when he sees you." I smiled, my heart pounding, and tried to believe her. But as the minutes ticked by, something felt wrong. The organist played the same song twice. My father checked his watch, frowning. The priest cleared his throat and glanced at the doors. I kept telling myself he was just running late, that maybe his tie was crooked or he'd forgotten the rings. But then Mia's phone buzzed. She read the message, her face draining of color. She looked at me, her eyes wide with panic. "He's not coming," she whispered. I didn't understand. I couldn't understand. I pushed past her, out of the dressing room, down the aisle, my dress trailing behind me. The guests turned, their faces a blur of confusion and pity. I reached the front doors and flung them open, searching for him. But he was gone. No car, no note, nothing but the echo of my own heartbeat in my ears. That was the day my world ended. Or at least, that's what it felt like. I spent weeks in bed, the wedding dress shoved into the back of my closet, the invitations and gifts piled up like reminders of everything I'd lost. People called, texted, sent flowers. I ignored them all. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted answers. But none came. Not from him, not from anyone. The only thing I heard was a rumor, a whisper that he'd left me for someone else. Someone richer, someone with a last name that opened doors I could only dream of. I tried to move on. I threw myself into my work, taking every overtime shift, every late-night project, anything to keep my mind busy. I stopped believing in fairy tales. I stopped believing in happy endings. I stopped believing in myself. But life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. Before I continue, please like and subscribe the channel, and also tell me in the comments from where you watch this video. Now come back to the story. 5 years passed. 5 years of rebuilding, of learning to trust myself again, of climbing the corporate ladder one rung at a time. I started as an assistant, fetching coffee and making copies, but I worked harder than anyone else. I stayed late, volunteered for the toughest assignments, and never complained. Slowly, people started to notice. My boss gave me more responsibility. My team started coming to me for advice. I learned everything I could about the business, finance, marketing, management. I took night classes, earned my MBA, and kept pushing forward, even when it felt impossible. And then one day, everything changed. The company's founder announced his retirement. There was talk of bringing in someone from outside, someone with more experience, more connections. But then he called me into his office, closed the door, and said, "I've watched you grow. I've seen your dedication, your integrity, your strength. I want you to take over as CEO." I couldn't believe it. Me? The girl who'd been left at the altar, who'd spent years doubting herself, was now being handed the keys to the kingdom. I accepted, my hands shaking, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and pride. The first few months were a blur of meetings, decisions, and late nights. I made mistakes, but I learned from them. I built a team I trusted, people who believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. Slowly, the company started to thrive. Profits rose, morale improved, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. And then, one rainy Monday morning, everything changed again. I was sitting in my office, reviewing resumes for a new management position when my assistant buzzed in. "There's someone here to see you," she said. "He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent." I sighed, rubbing my temples. Send him in. The door opened, and in walked the last person I ever expected to see. It was him, the man who'd left me at the altar, the man who'd shattered my heart and disappeared without a word. He looked different, older, thinner. The confidence he once wore like armor now replaced by something else. Desperation. He didn't recognize me at first. He glanced around the office, his eyes lingering on the awards, the photos, the view of the city skyline. Then he looked at me, really looked, and I saw the moment it hit him. His face went pale, his mouth opening and closing like he was searching for words. I leaned back in my chair, folding my hands on the desk. Can I help you? I asked, my voice steady. He swallowed hard. I'm here about the management position. I saw the posting online. I need a job. For a moment, I just stared at him, letting the silence stretch between us. I could see the confusion in his eyes, the way he was trying to piece together how the woman he'd abandoned could possibly be sitting behind this desk in this office, with her name on the door. I wondered if he remembered the sound of my voice, the way I used to say his name, the promises we'd made to each other under the stars. I wondered if he remembered the way he'd broken every single one. He cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably in the chair across from me. I know this is awkward, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, but I really need this job. Things haven't exactly gone the way I planned. I raised an eyebrow, keeping my expression neutral. Is that so? He nodded, looking down at his hands. After the wedding, I thought I was making the right choice. He stopped, glancing up at me, searching my face for any sign of forgiveness. She had everything. Money, connections, a family name that opened doors. But it turns out, none of that matters when there's no love, no trust. We divorced last year. She kept everything. I lost my job, my house. I've been trying to start over, but it's been hard. I listened, my heart pounding in my chest. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to ask how he could have done what he did, to demand answers for all the pain he'd caused. But another part of me, the part that had spent 5 years rebuilding, growing, becoming someone new, just felt empty. I realized in that moment that I didn't need his apology. I didn't need his regret. I had already moved on. He looked at me, desperation in his eyes. Please. I know I don't deserve it, but I need this chance. I'll do anything. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. You know, it's funny, I said, my voice calm. 5 years ago, I would have given anything for you to look at me the way you're looking at me now. To beg for a second chance, but now, I'm not sure you even deserve to be in this room. He flinched, the words hitting him harder than I expected. I'm sorry, he whispered. I really am. I studied him for a long moment, weighing my options. I could turn him away, send him back out into the rain, let him feel a fraction of the pain he'd caused me. Or I could give him the chance he was asking for, not because he deserved it, but because I deserved to prove, to myself, to him, to everyone, that I was stronger than my past. I reached for his resume, scanning the lines of experience, the gaps that told their own story. You're not the only one applying for this job, I said. And you're not the most qualified. But I believe in second chances. I believe people can change. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll give you a trial period. 3 months. You'll start at the bottom, just like everyone else. No special treatment. No shortcuts. If you prove yourself, we'll talk about something more permanent. He stared at me, disbelief and gratitude warring on his face. Thank you, he said, his voice cracking. You won't regret it. I nodded, keeping my expression cool. We'll see. He stood, awkwardly extending his hand. I hesitated for a moment, then shook it, feeling the weight of the past settle between us. As he left the office, I let out a long breath, my hands trembling. I hadn't expected to feel so free. The next few weeks were a test for both of us. He started at the bottom, just like I promised, answering phones, Filing paperwork, running errands. He worked hard, never complained, never asked for favors. The other employees didn't know our history, but they could sense something was different. They watched him, curious, waiting to see if he would rise or fall. I watched him too. I watched the way he treated people, the way he tried to make up for lost time, the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. There were moments when I saw glimpses of the man I used to love, the kindness, the humor, the drive, but there were also moments when I remembered the pain, the betrayal, the way he'd left me standing alone in front of everyone I cared about. One afternoon, as I was leaving the office, I found him waiting by the elevator. He looked nervous, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. "Can we talk?" he asked. I hesitated, then nodded. We walked to a quiet corner of the lobby, away from prying eyes. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said, his voice soft. "Not just for the job, but for everything. For not hating me. For giving me a chance to prove I'm not the same person I was." I looked at him, searching his face for the truth. "Why did you do it?" I asked, the question I'd been holding on to for 5 years. "Why did you leave me?" He closed his eyes, pain flickering across his features. "I was scared," he admitted. "Scared of not being enough. Scared of failing you. When she offered me everything I thought I wanted, I took it. But it was a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life." I nodded, feeling a strange sense of closure. "We can't change the past," I said. "But we can decide what we do next." He smiled, a small, hopeful smile. "I'd like to try. To be better. To make things right." I didn't promise him anything. I didn't owe him that. But as I walked away, I realized that forgiveness wasn't about him, it was about me. About letting go of the pain, the anger, the memories that had held me captive for so long. The weeks turned into months, and the company continued to grow. I poured myself into my work, leading my team through new projects, celebrating our wins and learning from our losses. My ex-fiance, now just another employee, kept his head down, working harder than anyone else. He never asked for special treatment, never tried to use our past as leverage. He was polite, respectful, and for the most part, invisible. But every now and then, I'd catch him looking at me with a mixture of regret and admiration, as if he still couldn't believe how much things had changed. One Friday afternoon, as I was preparing for a big board meeting, my assistant knocked on my door. "He's here to see you," she said quietly. I knew who she meant. I took a deep breath and told her to send him in. He entered, looking more nervous than I'd ever seen him. He held a folder in his hands, his knuckles white. "I wanted to give you this," he said, placing the folder on my desk. "It's the final report on the project you assigned me. I hope it's up to your standards." I opened the folder and scanned the pages. The work was excellent, thorough, creative, and detailed. I looked up at him, and for the first time, I saw not the man who had left me at the altar, but the man he had become. Someone humbled by life, someone who had learned from his mistakes. "You did good work," I said simply. He let out a breath he'd been holding. "Thank you. That means more than you know." There was a long pause. He shifted his weight, searching for the right words. "I know I can never undo what I did to you. I know I hurt you in ways I can't even imagine, but I want you to know that I'm grateful for this chance. Not just the job, but the chance to prove, to myself, to you, that I can be better." I nodded, feeling a strange sense of peace settle over me. "You don't owe me anything," I said. "We both made choices. We both have to live with them. But I'm glad you're finding your way." He smiled, a real, genuine smile. "I hope you find happiness. You deserve it." As he turned to leave, I stopped him. "Wait." He looked back, hope flickering in his eyes. "I want you to know something. The day you left me at the altar, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd never recover. But losing you was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to find my own strength, to build a life I'm proud of. I'm not angry anymore. I'm grateful." He nodded, tears shining in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. After he left, I sat at my desk, staring out at the city skyline. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. I thought about everything I'd been through, the heartbreak, the loneliness, the struggle to rebuild. I thought about the woman I'd become, the leader, the survivor, the CEO. I realized that I didn't need anyone's approval or validation. I was enough just as I was. A few weeks later, the board called a special meeting. They wanted to discuss the future of the company, to chart a new course for growth and innovation. As I stood at the head of the table, presenting my vision, I saw the respect in their eyes. I saw the trust, the belief that I was the right person to lead them forward. After the meeting, as I walked through the lobby, I saw him one last time. He was packing up his things, preparing to move on to a new job, a new life. He caught my eye and smiled, a silent goodbye passing between us. There was no bitterness, no regret, just acceptance. Sometimes life gives us exactly what we need, even if it's not what we want. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who teach us how to heal. And sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living well, finding happiness on your own terms. As I stepped out into the evening air, I felt lighter than I had in years. The past no longer had power over me. I was free. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been left behind, if you've ever had to start over, know that you're not alone. You are stronger than you think, and your best days are still ahead of you.